Chapter 1. Waking Shadows. The first thing I noticed when I woke was the sound of rain tapping against the window. It felt distant, almost unreal, like the soundtrack to someone else's life. My eyes fluttered open, heavy as if they'd been sealed shut for centuries. The room was bathed in a pale glow, the kind that only comes on cloudy afternoons. I blinked, trying to make sense of where I was. "Ah, you're awake," a soft voice said, startling me. A nurse stood by the window, her back to me. She wore an old-fashioned uniform, the kind you'd see in black and white photographs. A crisp white apron over a pale blue dress, her hair pinned neatly under a cap. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. Where am I? My voice cracked, dry and unfamiliar. She turned to me, her face calm but oddly expressionless. "You're in the hospital. You've been in a coma for 3 months. It's good to see you awake, Sakura-san." Coma. 3 months. The words felt heavy, like stones dropping into a bottomless well. My head throbbed as memories tried to resurface. Flashes of a car, the sound of screeching tires, glass shattering, and then nothing. "My fiancé?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Where's Akihiko?" The nurse's lips pressed into a thin line. She hesitated, her hands smoothing down the front of her apron. I'm sorry, Sakura-san. He didn't make it." The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. "Akihiko, my Akihiko, gone." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, that's not possible. He was right next to me. We were—" My voice broke. The nurse's expression didn't change. She placed a cool hand on my shoulder. "You should rest. The doctor will be here soon." The days blurred together after that. Doctors came and went, their voices a symphony of reassurance I didn't believe. They spoke of head trauma, recovery, therapy. They didn't speak of Akihiko. I couldn't bring myself to ask again. At night, the hospital felt different. Shadows stretched long and dark across the walls. Sometimes I'd see janitors cleaning my room, their movements silent and deliberate. But when I tried to speak to them, they ignored me, their faces hidden under the brims of their caps. It was as if I didn't exist to them. One evening, I mentioned it to my day nurse, Ayumi-san. "The janitors," I said. "They're strange. They don't talk to me. Are they new?" She frowned, her pen pausing over her clipboard. "Janitors? We don't have anyone cleaning rooms at night, Sakura-san. You must have been dreaming." "But I saw them," I insisted. "They were here in my room. I spoke to them." Her expression softened into pity. "It's common after head trauma to experience confusion or hallucinations. Give it time." I wanted to argue, but her tone left no room for discussion. Still, I knew what I'd seen. The janitors weren't a figment of my imagination. After weeks of this, they finally discharged me. The doctors were optimistic, though I wasn't sure why. They sent me home with a stack of pamphlets about grief and recovery. Home. The word felt hollow. My apartment was exactly as we'd left it. Akihiko's shoes sat by the door, his favorite mug on the counter. I couldn't bring myself to touch anything. The air was thick with his absence. The first few days I barely moved. I sat on the couch staring at nothing. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional sound of rain. I didn't cry. The tears felt stuck, like they'd been buried too deep to reach. One night I ventured into the kitchen. My stomach growled, though I hadn't eaten in hours. I opened the fridge only to find it nearly empty. Milk expired. Leftovers unrecognizable. I grabbed a bottle of water and closed the door, and that's when I saw it. A figure, reflected in the window. It was faint, barely there, but unmistakable. Someone stood behind me, their outline blurred and shimmering like heat waves. I spun around, heart racing, but the kitchen was empty. My hands trembled as I backed out of the room, my breath coming in short gasps. Was this the trauma they kept talking about? Hallucinations? Or was it something else? Days turned into weeks. I began to venture outside, though the world felt foreign. Crowded streets, bustling markets, the hum of life all around me. I moved through it like a ghost. People's faces blurred together, their voices indistinct. One afternoon I stopped at a small shrine tucked away between towering buildings. I hadn't planned to, but my feet led me there. I knelt before the altar, my hands pressed together, and whispered a prayer. "Akihiko," I said, my voice breaking, "if you're still here, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. Please give me a sign, anything." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the cherry trees above. For a moment, I thought I felt a hand on my shoulder. Warm, familiar. I turned, but no one was there. I left the shrine that day feeling both comforted and unsettled. Something was happening, something I couldn't explain. I just knew that I couldn't live like this, not anymore. Chapter 2: The Crying Woman. The days blurred into each other, an endless cycle of grey. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt anything but this crushing emptiness. Every breath felt like a chore, and every step felt heavier than the last. Grief was an unwelcome guest that refused to leave, a weight on my chest that I couldn't shake. It wrapped around me, pulling me deeper into its suffocating embrace. One evening, the ache became unbearable. The apartment felt like a tomb, its silence mocking me. My eyes lingered on the screen of my laptop, open to yet another story of someone who had chosen to end their pain. Their words felt like echoes of my own thoughts, trapped, alone, and tired. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, rereading the final messages they had left behind. Tears blurred my vision as I closed the laptop with trembling hands. Without thinking, I grabbed my coat and left. The cold night air bit at my skin, but I barely noticed. My feet moved on their own, carrying me through the dimly lit streets. The world around me was eerily quiet, the distant hum of the city muffled as if the universe itself had grown tired. When I looked up, I found myself standing at the edge of the bridge. The river below was a void, its surface black and uninviting. The wind whipped around me, tugging at my hair, almost urging me forward. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the question I'd been asking myself for months. Why am I still here? I stepped closer to the edge, the cold metal of the railing biting into my palms as I gripped it. My breath came in shallow gasps, each one visible in the frigid air. I closed my eyes, letting the wind envelop me. For a moment there was peace, a quiet nothingness. "Stop!" The voice shattered the silence like a glass breaking in an empty room. My eyes snapped open and I turned toward the sound. It had come from the trees at the edge of the forest that flanked the bridge. "Who's there?" My voice wavered, barely louder than a whisper. The only response was the rustling of leaves, the sound unnervingly deliberate. My heart raced, but not from fear, not yet. There was something about the voice that felt familiar, though I couldn't place it. I stepped back from the edge, my resolve faltering. The world felt heavier, as though the air itself had thickened. The darkness between the trees seemed alive, shifting and pulsing as I stared. "Hello?" I called again, my voice trembling. Nothing. The silence was deafening now, pressing against my ears. A shiver ran down my spine, and I turned away, walking quickly back toward the city. The sun was sinking below the horizon, and the last rays of light painted the sky in fiery hues that did little to warm the growing chill. As I walked, a sound broke the stillness behind me. Footsteps. Faint at first, but unmistakable. My pulse quickened, and I glanced over my shoulder. The street was empty. The footsteps grew louder, matching my pace. I quickened my steps, my breath coming in short bursts. The shadows lengthened, the streetlights flickering to life as darkness swallowed the city. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat a desperate plea to escape whatever was following me. Suddenly my foot caught on a pothole and I stumbled forward, hitting the pavement hard. Pain shot through my hands and knees, but I barely noticed. Slowly I lifted my head, and my breath caught in my throat. She was standing there. The woman's figure was framed by the dim light of a flickering street lamp. She was barefoot, her pale legs smudged with dirt, and a thin white nightgown clung to her frail frame. The fabric fluttered slightly in the breeze, but she remained eerily still. My eyes travelled upward, my stomach twisting with unease. Her face was gaunt, her skin almost translucent in the pale light. Dark, hollow eyes stared at me, and her lips trembled as though she were about to speak. Instead, she reached out with thin, delicate hands. I froze, unable to move as her fingers brushed my cheek. The touch was icy, sending a jolt of cold through my body. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't normal tears. They were thick, black, staining her hollow cheeks as they fell. Her sobs grew louder, more frantic, each one tearing through the silence like a scream. My body refused to obey me. I was paralyzed, trapped under her gaze as she gripped my face. Her nails dug into my skin, her icy touch spreading numbness through my limbs. Panic surged in my chest, but I couldn't even cry out. "Please!" I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible. "Let me go!" Her cries turned into a hysterical wail, her mouth opening unnaturally wide. The sound was a chorus of anguish, layered and otherworldly, echoing in my ears and making my head spin. My heart pounded wildly as adrenaline surged through me. With a desperate burst of strength, I broke free from her grip and scrambled to my feet. I ran, my legs burned, my lungs ached, but I didn't stop. The city lights grew brighter, closer, and I didn't dare look back. When I finally reached my apartment, I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I slammed the door shut behind me, locking it and leaning against it as I tried to catch my breath. My chest heaved, and tears streamed down my face as I stumbled to my bed. I threw myself under the blankets, pulling them over my head like a child hiding from a nightmare. My body trembled, every nerve on edge as I replayed the encounter in my mind. Then, just as exhaustion began to pull me under, I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. Soft, muffled crying. It came from outside my bedroom window, faint but unmistakable. The sobs were low and mournful, carrying a sorrow that seeped into my very soul. I buried myself deeper under the covers, clamping my hands over my ears, but the sound persisted. The crying continued through the night, its haunting melody keeping me awake. When the first rays of dawn finally broke through the window, the crying stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse, heavy and suffocating. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, too afraid to move. I knew this wasn't over. Whatever had found me that night wasn't going to let me go so easily.